Good evening, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to this evening's presentation. My name is Katherine Brooke-MacKenzie. I'm going to be your hostess for the next 45 minutes. We have a chat box available, so if you have any questions or anything, then you can pop them in there and somebody will do their best to answer them, because sometimes with these Zoom connections, they can go a little bit wobbly, can't they? And you might miss something and just need to get some clarity or something like that. So let's move on, crack on straight away. I want to ask you a couple of questions to start with. First off, can you relate to this? Do you wake up every morning with a heavy feeling and then proceed to kind of haul your carcass through the day, wondering how long ago it was that your get up and go got up and went, and if indeed it's ever going to come back again? Perhaps you dread looking in your wardrobe because your belly bloat is so unpredictable that you manage to find something that actually fits at the beginning of the day. It's unlikely to still fit you by the end of the day, and you're walking around with your zip undone or your button undone or a big baggy jumper holding it, covering it all up. Or maybe you're just sick and tired of visiting your doctor to be handed out prescription drugs that might seem to work for you in the short term, but are only really masking a deeper problem, and you're just developing concerns about just how many side effects you're having and the long-term effect of what the medication is having on your body. Well, how about this instead? Imagine waking up in the morning with a massive broad smile. You bounce out of bed, you're full of enthusiasm, and you can't wait to embrace your day. And also you know that whatever it's going to throw at you, you've got the wherewithal to throw it back. And think of yourself flinging back your wardrobe doors, confidently choosing an outfit that reflects your positive mood rather than has to cater for your expanding waistline. And this is the bit to me that's the most important of all. Imagine you have so much confidence in your body's ability to heal itself naturally that you can't actually remember the last time you visited your doctor's surgery. So what's the vehicle that gets you from one state of affairs to the other? It is, in fact, a healthy gut. Yay! Now, nice wave from Kat there. So why is it important for us to start paying attention to our gut health now? Why now more than ever before? Well, it may not have escaped your notice that we have, in fact, been in a pandemic for around about 15 months now. We've been fairly persistently bombarded with lots of negative news and propaganda that would have us believing that we are kind of, massive vulnerable victims to this dreadful disease, and that we have absolutely no control over how it affects us. Well, I'd like to say that that's largely not true. We have this wonderful thing called an immune system. And, we are able to strengthen that by taking care of our gut health. So that's something that we all need to be looking at as we're coming out of lockdown now, where perhaps we're being a bit more exposed to more people than we have been lately. We want to make sure that our immune systems are working as well as they possibly can to keep us safe. Something else that we're noticing is a massive increase in mental health and mood disorders, which again may have been exacerbated by the lockdown with things like isolation and people having concerns and fears around their own health and maybe their financial concerns as well. I think, we had some problems before, but they're definitely escalating now. And you might think, well, what's that got to do with my gut health? Well, you've come to the right place, because we're going to talk about that a little bit more later on. And something else that we're seeing markedly increasing is autoimmune diseases. We have so many people suffering with or being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, fibromyalgia, and some of the statistics I've quoted here are really shocking. That's a year-by-year increase, 7% increase in rheumatic diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis. And again, lots of autoimmune problems have their origins in weak gut function, poor guts, that kind of thing. So it's really important that we start taking care of this now so that we can bring those statistics down rather than see them increase. Well, why would you listen to me? It's a damn good question. Well, I've been in the complementary and alternative health field for around about 20 years. I run a gut health clinic in Chippenham in Wiltshire, and I have a degree in traditional 5-element acupuncture, and I'm a qualified colon hydrotherapy practitioner. Now, colon hydrotherapy is what used to be called colonic irrigation, And if you don't know what that is, I'll just tell you very briefly without any pictures. It's where you insert a purpose-built instrument into a person's bottom so that we can introduce warm filtered water for the purposes of removing waste products like poop and gas and pollutants and toxins and wonderful stuff like that, and even some small creatures on rare occasions. Yeah, it's an interesting job. You can say that I've been quite clever, really. I've managed to fashion an entire career around getting paid to take somebody else's crap. Now, recently, I have published, well, I'm just about to publish a book called Let That Shit Go. Excuse my language. It's 31 Things to Do If You Want a Better Poo. And if you are interested in getting a copy of that, it comes out next Wednesday. It will be available on Amazon. And if you want to let me know, the links, you can just drop me an email to that address there, 31thingstodo@gmail.com. So you can see, having been working at the sharp end of the human digestive process for about 16 years, I can confidently say I know my head. Right. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to talk about something called your gut microbiome. That might be a term that's familiar to you already, or it might be something you've never heard of. But it definitely isn't what one of my friends thought was a new biological sort of washing powder. No, it's actually the bacterial environment or microbial environment that lives on and in your body and performs a myriad of functions on your behalf that influence your physical and mental well-being. I'm also going to get you to start, or hope to get you to start, paying attention to your poop and what happens around the bottom end of things. So paying attention to your bowel habits, because that's one of the biggest clues we've got to the welfare of our gut. And I'm also going to share some information on what we've called the Gut Pollution Solution, which is something called the Purify Program. That's a 21-day gut microbiome reset program. And we're very lucky today because we're going to have a live testimonial from a lady who has recently completed the program. It's massively positively affected her health. She came to me a couple of months back. She sadly got COVID last year. She's usually quite a strong, resilient sort of lady. But having had COVID, it just really knocked the stuffing out of her, and she just couldn't find her way back to, her previous, buoyant, healthy, radiant self. And it was definitely had an impact on her gut. So she came to me and she's done the program, and she's going to share her experience of that with us a little bit later on. So you're guessing by now that the road to health is paved with good intestines. And you don't have to take my word for it, because even back in the day, good old Hippocrates, known as the father of medicine, was saying that all disease begins in the gut. Now, I think with a few modern scientific developments and things, we can say that that's not 100% true. I think there are maybe 2-3% of congenital disorders that we can't influence by changing lifestyle and changing our gut health. But that still gives us a pretty big range, like 97% of influence, which is really, really big news, good news for us. So let's have a look at what goes on the inside. Now, I'm showing you this only because, just to remind you that when we're talking about guts, this is what we're referring to. It's all those gubbins that sort of hides behind our skin, thankfully, because it's not really that pretty to look at, is it? Even if it's beautifully coloured in as it is on this diagram. But essentially, when I'm talking about gut, I'm talking about that pathway from your mouth all the way through to your bottom. And by that, I mean your anus. Now, it might surprise you to learn that the anus is actually the first thing that's formed in a developing fetus in the womb, which means that each and every one of us at some point in our lives was just an asshole. And, who put your hand up if you know somebody who never got past that stage. Anyway, moving on. So what I want you to think about, though, instead of having to know all those kind of like, those medical terms for different parts of your intestines, I'd like you to think about your gut in terms of it being like a hose pipe. So it's just one long pipe that goes from your mouth all the way through to your bottom. And when you think about that hose pipe, you might think when you chew your food, you swallow your food you think it's gone into your body. But that's actually not true, because all it's done is gone into the middle of that hose pipe. And it doesn't actually become your body until it's absorbed through the lining of the hose pipe, okay? So that's why we think of the gut as being the interface between the inside and the outside world. You've probably heard the phrase, you are what you eat, but now you'll see that that's only really part of the story, because you are actually only what you absorb. And the quality of that absorption is dependent upon something called your microbiome. So what is it am I talking about? Well, it's essentially, as I said earlier, it's the bacterial environment that lives in and on your body. There are several thousand different species, and I think there are more being discovered all the time. Different ones that live in different parts of our body, but there are several thousand different ones that actually live within the gut. Each of our microbiomes is as unique to us as our fingerprints. And if you just take a moment and look down at the tip of your finger, with your forefinger, there are more bacteria living on that fingertip right now than there are people living in the UK. So we are literally teeming with life. And it's kind of sad, really, that particularly in the last 15 months or so, that we've come to think of, or I think we had it before then, but bacteria as being a really negative thing, and we're always trying to kill off bacteria, kill all the germs dead and disinfect all our surfaces and wipe things with antibacterial wipes and hand wash and God knows what. But actually that's really damaging our health in the long term. We're affecting the way all these things are balanced out. Now, there are bad bacteria, that's true, but there are also good guys. And what we need to do is get the balance right, so that we have a higher proportion of good guys on us and in us than we have baddies. And getting that balance right is absolutely critical to our health. So when we think about these bacteria, we've got, like I say, goodies and baddies. They're always going to be bad guys. And in actual fact, we need them because they help to train our immune systems to what the bad guys are. But the ratio that we actually are trying to achieve is around about 85% goodies, 15% baddies. And believe me, from the things that I've seen in the clinic, I can almost categorically state that most people's guts are round the wrong way. So as a result of that, we have lots of digestive problems. We have gas, bloating, and God knows what. What we're trying to do, of course, is to tip that balance. We need to stop feeding the bad guys, feed the good guys, and create an environment in which they can thrive and proliferate. So what does this microbiome influence for us on a daily basis? What does it actually do? Well, more things than we can probably list right here. But it influences your mood. We'll talk about that a little bit more later on. And it influences your food choices and food cravings as well. So if you've ever had to put your dressing gown on in the middle of the night and go and find an open garage just so you can get a Mars bar because you've got really serious sugar cravings, you might forgive yourself a little bit, because that's not really you that's doing that. That's the bad bacteria. They are screaming to be fed, and they love things like chocolate and pastries and biscuits and cakes and all of that horrible, kind of nasty, sweet, sugary food. So yeah, maybe it wasn't your fault. Okay, it was the bacteria. They made you do it. Now, these gut bacteria also influence your weight loss and your weight gain. And they have a massive role to play in your digestive transit time too. So by that, I mean, if you've got really slow bowels or even overactive bowels, that could also be a really big indicator that there's something out of balance in your gut microbiome. When we've got the balance right, things move in an appropriate way. They also influence your inflammation levels, which we'll also talk about in a few more minutes. Your immune system, which I've already touched on. And also, this is a really, really important role as well. They maintain the integrity of your gut lining. So if you think back again to the hosepipe thing, I said you've got this tiny, it's like 1 cell thick, this mucosal lining of your gut. And its surface is not dissimilar to that of a tea bag. So it has loads and loads of tiny little perforations in it through which you absorb your nutrition. Now, when you don't have enough good guys to fight the good fight, if you like, the bad guys get in there, and what they do is they get their kind of little feet in the little holes and start making them bigger and wider, and so your gut lining is losing its integrity. And this is essentially the beginning of something called leaky gut syndrome, which is something you may already be familiar with. Now, when you look at this image, if you look at the big red bar at the bottom, that's your bloodstream. And if you imagine you've got the 3 pink cells there, and the bit above that would be the center of your gut. So it's called the lumen again, like the inside of your hose pipe, okay? Now, if you look at those three slightly lighter pink cells on the left-hand side, you'll see that they're really close together. So the junctions in between them, which are called tight junctions, they're behaving appropriately. Nothing's getting through them other than what should be. If you look to the right-hand side of the image there, you've got two cells that are further apart. They've got what are called baggy junctions. And as a result of that, they're allowing things that are in the lumen of your gut, which should be carried out via your bowel, as a poop, to instead be sort of ingested into your system instead, or absorbed into your bloodstream. So all that bad bacteria, pollutants, even food particles are hitting your bloodstream and then triggering an immune response. And eventually, when that keeps happening, you'll notice there'll be an increase in inflammation in your body. And it's a bit like, like your immune system's there, it's there to protect you, and it's doing its job, and it notices all these sort of alien beings floating around and coming through your gut. But like anything, it also needs a rest. If you did like an 8-hour shift and at the end of it, your boss said, you go and do another 8-hour shift. Now you think, oh, blimey, that's not on. And at the end of that shift, you've got to do another 8 hours. You'd be kind of getting tired out, getting worn out. And it's the same with your immune system. When we keep triggering it all the time, we keep asking it to respond to things like that shouldn't be in the bloodstream, like they're coming through the gut in this way, we just wear it out. I mean, that's a gross simplification of the mechanisms in play here, but that's essentially like the beginning of an autoimmune problem. You've kind of worn out your immune system, really. It can't defend you anymore. So you can see just how important it is to get those bacteria really balanced, get the good guys in there, fighting the good fight, keeping those junctions in your gut healed, tight, and doing the job that they're meant to do. If you don't take care of your immune system, this is who you end up with fighting your battles for you. Bless their hearts, but wouldn't you rather be, if you're going into battle, wouldn't you rather be behind these guys? Oh yeah, who wouldn't? Totally. So I think that's made the point there. Taking care of your gut's going to strengthen your immune system. Right, let's move on to something called your gut-brain axis. You may or may not know that you have a brain in your gut, and it's called the enteric nervous system. I mean, structurally, if you look at that image there, it does actually look not dissimilar to the small intestine. Now, this gut brain that we have is made up of lots of neurons, which are like nerve cells. It's estimated there are around 1, 2, or even 100 million neurons firing off in our guts all the time. And it's also said that for every message that goes from our head brain down to our gut, there are 9 messages going the opposite way, which is extraordinary, really. Now, really, our guts are like massive messaging centers, and they're dependent upon the right sort of chemical balances and hormones and neurotransmitters being in play for us to receive those messages up to our head brain in the right order. They're kind of coherent, they're making sense, all that kind of stuff sort of makes sense, really. They communicate through this thing called the vagus nerve, which is like the information superhighway, really, between your gut brain and your head brain. And it's the kind of stuff, it's like, are you safe? There's all sorts of messages from what your body's doing, feeding back to your brain, all that kind of stuff. And all these neurons, it's said to be, I wonder why there's a picture of a cat there. Your gut brain is said to be like, have the same amount of neurons as an entire cat's brain. So, that's an extraordinary amount of intelligence. And if we don't have the bacteria right again, we're missing out on these messages, or we're not getting accurate information about, our health, about who we are, how we are, and how we show up in the world. So, guess what? It's down to those gut bacteria, They're responsible for the manufacture and balance of around about 35 different hormones and neurotransmitters. We might have lumped them in together a little bit here just for ease. One of the main ones, something you might have already heard of, something called serotonin, is known as your happy hormone, and around about 90% of that is manufactured in your gut by the good bacteria. So you can see why there are connections between people who are possibly depressed, who have gut problems, and people who have gut problems are possibly depressed. It's a little bit of a, a negative feedback loop there. Now, the next one, calmness and relaxation, that's a hormone called GABA, as that's an abbreviation of a very long word that I can't even begin to try and pronounce. But that's really what keeps us calm. It keeps us sort of in a relaxed state so that we're not getting overly anxious or not overthinking things. So again, anxiety problems often have their roots in gut health. Melatonin is what we need for that really, really, really deep restorative sleep. If we're not getting that, then our bodies just simply aren't healing. It's so, so important. Sleep is where we heal. It's where we mend. It's where all the maintenance gets done. So if we're not sleeping properly, our bodies aren't healing. It's just as simple as that. And also we've noticed when people get their gut balance, their bacteria in better balance, they'll notice a marked improvement in their fertility issues, menopausal symptoms, menstruation issues, whether that's to do with like PMT or gut, tummy pain, that sort of thing, breast tenderness, all of that stuff tends to balance out. Oxytocin for the love, trust, and self-esteem. It's we're mammals. We need to connect with other humans, but there are appropriate boundaries that need to be maintained. And when we get the balance right, we're going to be able to do that and relate to each other in a much more safe and an appropriate way. And then we have dopamine and the last one, noradrenaline. And these are the sort of things that help us to be engaged in our life, So like I said earlier, you want to get up, you want to get on with your life. You set yourself goals and targets to achieve, and you have a sense of reward when you do that. For a long time, gut health has been, not gut health, but guts have been associated with courage. And I wonder if it's because of the connection with these two hormones that if we're missing out on them, we're tending to be a little bit, backed off life, perhaps lacking in courage. So how do I know how my microbiome is doing? Well, you can take a look at these modern day health problems that we're seeing almost all the time. And in fact, so much so that we've almost come to expect them as being normal. It's like an expectation that you're going to have high blood pressure when you get to a certain age, or ladies of a certain age are going to start gaining weight and being grumpy and biting their partner's heads off or something. I think that might be close to home, that one. And you might look again at this list and wonder, what the hell's headaches got to do with my gut health? Well, believe me, when this bacteria thing, it's a thing. We need to get it right. One of the other major influences you will have, or clues that you can use, is to the health of your microbiome, of course, is by paying attention to poo. Yeah. Sadly, right, I'm not talking about the yellow fluffy bear, because he's lovely. Everybody has a deep affection for him. No, I'm talking about the brown stuff, the sticky stuff, the smelly stuff that nobody wants to talk about. Yes, now, this is the Bristol stool chart. You may have heard of it before. It was something that was put together by two consultants in the Bristol Royal Infirmary, hence its name. Not so called because Bristol's a crap place or anything. It isn't. I grew up there. But yeah, these two guys in the BRI put this together as a clinical aid, really, so that bowels play such a big, important role in health. They know, wanted to make some kind of a record. So if anyone's having a spell in hospital, they've got then a record of how that person performed their stool that from the day before. It might be something influenced by medication or something like that. And it's also really helpful. So if a nurse has been off for a couple of days and she comes on, she takes on her shift, she can just pick up a chart and know that Mr. Brown in bed 6 has done a number 2 that was in fact a number 4. Lucky Mr. Brown, because type 4 is the ideal poo. Now, we could talk about poo like this, but I prefer to do it chocolate style because it's funny and it might actually put you off eating chocolate. So it's a double win because we know chocolate feeds the bad guys. They're just not good. Now, I'm going to start, normally I start at the bottom and work up, but see what I did there. I'm going to start in the middle today, just for a change. And so I want to draw your attention to number 4, which is the ripple poo. This is the gold standard of the poo world. Who knew there was such a thing? Well, there is. And this type of poo is lovely. This is the kind of poo that you kind of feel first thing in the morning, say, oh, I think there might be a little train in the station coming along there. And you'll just put the kettle on, maybe get your breakfast ready, and then think, oh, I'm going to go. So it gives you loads of time to get to the loo, and you sit there, and it just glides out of your bottom. That's the perfect kind of, you almost don't even need to push, right? I described it once as a penguin elegantly diving into the ocean. That's how it should go. And then you do one wipe of your bum, job's done. That's the last you hear of it. You don't know anything else about your bowels for the whole day until the next day when you do it again. Ideal world, that's what you've got. If you're doing a toffee crisp, it's not too bad. You just need to drink a little bit more water because we try to get those cracks out if it might be an indication of dehydration or something like that. But yeah, 3, not too bad. However, and there is a little caveat I need to say here that, of course, each and every one of us will have experienced each of these poo types at some point in our lives. But if on a regular basis you're doing a number 1, a number 2, a number 5, or number 6, or a number 7, you really need to get some help, right? Number 7 is obviously diarrhea, right? So that's the kind of thing that your body causes when you've had some kind of pathogenic invasion, and it's an absolutely appropriate response. So it's your body's way of flushing out the bad thing as quickly as it possibly can to preserve you. Most people will reach for the Imodium within about 10 minutes of having diarrhea. I really don't recommend that. You need to let your body do what it needs to do naturally before you start interfering with it. However, if you've had that for a couple of days, obviously, then you need to have some kind of intervention. But if you're regularly doing a number 1 and number 2, you know, number 1's the kind of thing that would have you rocking on the toilet back and forth for 10 minutes, bursting blood vessels in your eyeballs and popping veins in your neck, just to pass this tiny little marble. There's something wrong, really. And number 2, the lion bar. We call the lion bar because it's likely that you'll roar when you pass this. This feels like it's coming down your back passage with its claws digging in your rectum. And it's so horrible and so nasty that it's going to make you think that one of your main dietary components is glass fragments. This is the sort of thing that's going to cause a bit of blood on the stool, blood on the paper, blood on your bum. It's not great. So 1 or 2, you definitely got something going on with your microbiome. I would get some advice. Same applies to numbers 5 and 6, but obviously these are more at the softer end of the scale. So this is the kind of thing that's going to have you going to the toilet with urgency. You might actually feel like, you know, you might even have a little follow through and a couple of whoopsies with that sort of thing now and again. These will have you in danger of depleting the rainforest because they're going to take so much paperwork to tidy them up. They're really greasy. They're going to leave horrible little marks in your toilet or worse. And yeah, it's not good, really. They don't smell very nice either. And number 6 might even sound like a flock of seagulls flying out of your arse. So there you go. If you've got anything other than a 3 or 4, your microbiome needs a little bit of love. So how do you realize you've got this amazing internal world going on there? What do you actually do? What can you do that's going to make improvements and help support yourself? Well, there's plenty, frankly, and that's good news. The first thing we can do is make adjustments to our lifestyle. This guy here, this is an example of what not to do. What have we got going on here? Well, he's obviously having a few beers, isn't he? Looks like someone who doesn't really do any exercise. He's kind of hanging out on the couch, eating fast food, smoked a few fags. Yeah, this is not great. So the sorts of things that we would look to improve would be things like we'd need to make sure we're getting plenty of sleep and the right hours of sleep. So the most critical hours for sleeping are between 11 and 3 in the morning. And that's when your body does this massive cleanup thing. And so it's a bit like, if you imagine you work in an office and you have cleaners coming around whilst you're trying to work. It doesn't really work, does it? You know, little vacuums on and you're trying to make phone calls. It's not good. So it's the same with your body. When your body's trying to clean up the job that you've been doing all day, it needs you out of the way. It needs you asleep to do it. So those 4 hours are the most critical hours to sleep. Regular meal times. This is a real thing as well. You know, people, they often kind of don't eat till midday because they've got this fasting thing going on. And then they'll go home and they'll eat this massive dinner, evening meal around about 7 or 8 at night, which is actually when the stomach's energy is at its weakest. And then they'll go to bed with a really full stomach, feeling all bloated and uncomfortable. And they'll wake up the next day and they don't fancy breakfast. And that's because their stomach's still full of a half-digested, semi-putrefied meal from the night before. So if we ate like a decent breakfast, a fairly good lunch, and a decent evening meal at an appropriate time, we would then be really fasted from the hours of 7 p.m. through to 7 or 8 the next morning. That's a 12-hour fast at the appropriate time. So it's way better than doing it the other way around. We need to exercise more as well. That's not really my bag, I've got to be honest. It's something I find a little bit of a challenge. So I try to reduce all barriers to participation. And if you can't really, you don't have a regular class or you don't have a regular regime for exercise, I just set a 15-minute timer on my phone and I'll just walk out the house. And it goes off and I walk back really briskly. And there's like 30 minutes of exercise just done like that. You don't have to have a special kit. You don't have to book a class. You've just done 30 minutes, better than nothing. And stress, right? Stress, oh man, everybody's lives is just so stressed. But we need to try and manage that as best we can, because what happens when we're stressed is it shuts down the nervous system that we depend upon for our guts to work properly. And it keeps us in this like persistent, albeit low level, flight and fight response. And when we're in that, our guts literally don't work. So things get stuck and they don't travel so well, and that damages the microbiome. So there you go. There's a few things you can do right there. The other thing we've got going on, of course, is our environment. Unfortunately, there's much that we can't do about that. We're all rather continuously exposed to what are called POPs, which are like persistent organic pollutants. They come in the form of industrial chemicals and stuff that's on our food. It's very difficult to avoid those sorts of things, but we can help ourselves around our own home by reducing all the like scented candles and air fresheners and things that we put on our skin, and we shampoo and shower gels and tanning agents and makeup and all that. If we try to reduce that chemical load going into our bodies all the time, we'll be doing our microbiomes a really, really big favor. And of course, one of the most influential things, of course, is diet. If you're looking at that fork on the left and going, yum, then it's likely you have an imbalanced microbiome, because that's the kind of stuff those bad guys love. It's full of fat, it's got pretty much next to no fiber, it's highly processed, it's full of grease and stuff. It's making me feel a bit groggy just looking at it. Probably lots of salt as well. There's no nutrients. It's not very nice at all. The fork on the right obviously is the one that you're meant to go with. We need to make sure we have lots of diversity in our diet, lots of different coloured fruit and vegetables, a variety of different things going in. I mean, I think it's very easy for us all to get trapped in the regimes that we have. We have the same meals all the time. We become less adventurous maybe. So it's really good to introduce new things from time to time. Try to eat as regularly as you can as well over the period of the 24 hours. Lots of fibre going in there, because good bacteria loves fibre in the form of leafy greens and stuff like that. And fluids as well. Do as much as you possibly can to take out, stimulants if you can. And also those awful energy drink things, which you might as well just fry your kidneys really. But try to drink plenty of fresh water, plenty of fluids. Juices are great as well, although I think you're better off with smoothie, where you're taking in the whole fruit and the whole vegetable rather than just taking out the fibre, because your guts are going to miss out on that part of you. Now, even with the best will in the world, when we eat a really, really good diet, unfortunately, we're still up against it. I'm going to ask you, if you maybe pop this one in the chat box if you've got an answer to this question. How many salads would you need today to match the nutritional value of a salad made in 1970? It's actually quite a shocker. Here you go. Here's your answer. Woo! 47. That's a lot of eating salads, isn't it? Just to get the equivalent nutritional value. Well, it really shocked me, this, and it actually changed the kind of like the course of things for me, because I used to be of the opinion that there was no need to supplement diets at all. We could get everything we needed from a good diet, Unfortunately, that's clearly not the case now. And it was around about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, where I came in across a company called Synergy, who make a range of supplements. I'm going to talk specifically about the Purify program, which is a program that they've put together to target the health of the microbiome. but they also have a range of other very, very high quality supplements. So if you've got any questions or anything like that, I'd invite you to go back to the person who invited you to this talk and have a chat with them about the range of supplements that Synergy offer, because the quality really is off the grid. Now, what's the Purify program? Well, it's, as I said earlier, it's a 21-day gut microbiome reset program. For the duration of those 21 days, and we can alter that as well to accommodate the needs of any particular person that's doing it. So we set it out as 21 days, but it can be less or more depending on what that presenting person has. So you eat food, you eat normal food from a recommended food list. You don't have to weigh things or count things or anything like that. It's just good food, natural in its natural form. So you're eating normal food alongside these 5 supplements, each of which stands on their own 2 feet, but when put together works synergistically to do a range of different things. So we've got something there that's going to work on the pipe work and make sure that all the rubbish is being carried out. That's like good magnesium supplement, is make sure your bowels are working essentially. We've got something that's going to support your circulation. We tend to overlook that as being such an important part of gut health, because it's the blood that brings the nutrients and it's also the blood that takes the rubbish out. So when we get that circulation working properly, then the whole body's going to be more efficient. We've got an amazing product called BiomeDT, which is the like the detoxing element. So that's drawing out all the gunk from your cells and your system, so that we're not continuing to repollute the microbiome. And we also got this wonderful shake, and I'm sure you've tried protein shakes before, but not like this one, because this one actually targets the healing of those junctions. Remember those baggy junctions? It's going to work on that leaky gut problem and get that in a better state of repair, whilst the bioactives go in. That's the bacteria that we need to put in there, and feeding them the right ingredients to live on when they get there. So it's just this whole package that works beautifully to balance out your gut microbiome. Now, you don't have to take my word for it, because I'd like to invite the lovely Jo Starr to unmute if she's there. Is Jo there? Jo, you're with us now. I was just explaining that you kind of approached me a couple of months ago. Last year you had COVID. So if you can just share really quickly, how you felt when we first had our chat, what was going on for you?
Yeah, I felt rubbish in a nutshell. I had COVID at the beginning of last year, and that was pretty unpleasant. But then I was left with long COVID. I had lots of gut problems. It really affected my gut badly. I had all sorts of other symptoms, aches and pains and fatigue and brain fog and lots of other unpleasant things, which seemed to ease a little bit towards the end of the year. But I was still feeling really unwell. Every single thing I seemed to eat made me feel rubbish. My gut was really unhappy. Yeah. So obviously chatting to you about the Purify program, I thought actually it's probably worth giving it a shot, because
did you have any reservations about it? Is there anything you were kind of concerned about when it was described to you?
No, I think because I was feeling so rubbish, I felt, having had a chat with you and obviously having a read through all the information, I felt that it was exactly what I needed, because my gut clearly needed a reset. It needed a healthy kickstart, get rid of all those horrible toxins and bacteria that clearly my body had been harboring, and get it onto a brand new sort of reset. So no, I didn't have any reservations at all.
Excellent. And how did you find the actual execution of it, let's say, as a 3-week program?
I absolutely loved it. Really, I absolutely loved it. I'm a pretty healthy eater anyway, but I found the whole process really easy to follow. The the protein shake kind of replacement I found really yummy and actually really filling. And then it was nice to be able to still combine really decent meals with the rest of the program. Yeah, I absolutely loved it. Really enjoyed it.
Fantastic. That's lovely. Yes. Now, one last question then. Bless you for doing this. How do you feel now? How's Joe Star these days?
How is Joe Star these days? Well, I didn't realise how rubbish I had been feeling until I started this program, until I was about 2 weeks in, and started to feel like my old self. I just feel brilliant, sleeping better. My gut is happy, really happy, settled. I've had all sorts of other lovely benefits, like I had creaking, aching knees beforehand. All of that's gone. It's just been a 100% positive experience. It's just been brilliant. Oh. So I feel like me again.
Oh, that's lovely. I'm really glad. It's just so lovely that it's worked out for you, because like I say, you were doing all the right stuff, weren't you? But it was like the icing on the cake, really. It just sort of brought you back to your former glory.
It was, and I had even as I mentioned to you, I'd seen a kinesiologist because I went through the whole GP route, and because long COVID wasn't really known about, I tried a holistic approach, went to see a kinesiologist, took some supplements which had helped, but I still was left feeling pretty rubbish. So this is fantastic. I in fact, it's so brilliant. I would want to incorporate it into my yearly routine. I'd like to do it at least once or twice every year, because it's just I've found the whole experience so positive.
Well, my darling, that's wonderful to hear. Thank you so much, and thanks for coming on and sharing your views and your experience with us, because I'm sure that's going to help other people.
Yeah, my absolute pleasure, because it's worked wonders for me.
Fabulous. Thank you, darling. You're going to stay for the last few minutes?
Yeah, I will do. Yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome. Well, thank you, and sorry about the little mess up there. That was completely my fault, but we've got over it now, and we've heard from Joe. And I've just got a couple more things to share, really. We, in terms of the Purify program, we don't recommend it as being a weight loss program at all, but weight loss does seem to be a happy side effect when people have done the program. And I just want to explain a little bit about why that happens. So when we our bodies actually store our toxins in fat. So our body lays down fat to protect our bodies, if you like, the organs, from all the toxins that are floating around. So when we go on a diet, we reduce our calorie intake, then our body starts to lose fat. And as that happens, then our bodies get flooded with the toxins that were stored in the fat. And of course, gradually over time, this is like the origin of yo-yo dieting, essentially. We gradually go back to how we were eating before. The moment we start to eat normally again, once we've hit our target weight, then, of course, we lay down fat, because all those toxins are floating around in our bodies, and our body lays the fat down to protect itself from the toxins. And hey ho, so we keep going up and down with our diets. But when you do Purify, because of the detoxing element of it, you will experience something different at the end. So same way, the body stores toxins in fat, so we start to reduce the fat, and the body floods itself with toxins. But what we do with Purify is carry them out of the body in the appropriate way. Consequently, when you go back to eating normally again at the end of the program, you'll find that you're not laying the fat back down, and those little problem areas that you previously had don't come back. At least that's been my experience and the experience of other people that have done the program too. So like I said, it's not sold as a weight loss program, but it does seem to be a happy side effect for some people. So overall, I think I'm nearing the end here. It's just to reiterate that when your gut bacteria is balanced and your gut is happy, then you can enjoy all of these things. And who wouldn't like a reduction in their aches and pains, or have their hormones better balanced, or sleep better. We also find as well that people, like, their recovery times from ill health is improved. So even if they do get poorly, they bounce back really quickly. And most people's energies goes just off the grid. It really is a fantastic thing. I think that's me done. So it just remains to say that if you have any questions about anything that's been covered this evening, then please do go back to the person that invited you along to this talk. That person might be happy to do a free lifestyle analysis with you. That's just a questionnaire, a health questionnaire, which will give in like an indication of the overall body systems and how they're doing for you, so that could give you a point of reference really about what your next steps might be. There we go. I think that's it. Thank you so much for being here this evening and giving your time over to this. I hope you found it valuable, and I wish you a very, very happy and healthy rest of the week. Thank you.